Hello, I'm Kurt Lidke, Executive Director of Klamath Film, and you just watched Racing Thoughts, a heartfelt look at suicidal thoughts among teens in our K through 12 student film category for the Klamath Independent Film Festival. Joining us now is the director of this film, Shelby Huggins. Shelby, thank you for joining us.
Hi, thank you for having
Well,
me.
this is one of our K through 12 student films, and you are a student here in Klamath Falls at Klamath Union High School. And that school has a very special film program where they teach kids a lot of the ins and outs of film production, which is fantastic. I love the fact that there's a school that has that kind of hands-on approach to teaching, modern day tech and getting the experience to get fully involved in a potential career path. So, had you had interest in filmmaking before you got involved in the KU program, and how has that helped you as a filmmaker?
Yeah, so I started doing a summer film camp through Dan Stearns, who leads the program at KU. And then when I got into high school, I he got me into his classes around my sophomore year. And ever since then, I have been very active in all of the programs that we provide through Klamath Union and our business outreach and all that fun stuff. So.
Terrific. So, how in that time, how have you grown as far as your filmmaking skills? Because every filmmaker that when they first get into it, they're super passionate. Then after a couple of years, they're like, I don't want anyone to see the first things that I worked on, compared to where I'm at now.
Yeah, I definitely understand that. I look back at some of my films that I don't know. I was like, what was I thinking when I made that? But I definitely think that I have grown quite a bit. Um, Ever since I started getting into film, I realized it was my passion and I want to go into a career in film. And it's just been really incredible because there's so many chances to learn and you're always doing something new. It's never really boring or repetitive because every project is different. So I know that I've had a lot of growth, which is super exciting because I know that there'll be a lot of growth in the future as well.
So, tell us about this film, which is tackling a very heavy subject, but it came through a competition that was hosted, right? So, tell us how all that came about.
Yeah, so I received a flyer from Dan Stearns. He heard about the competition through the community, and my parents actually saw a advertisement for the competition and reached out to me as well. So I found out about it, and I feel very passionate about the topic of mental health and making sure that people who need help are reaching out to get that help and that kind of thing. And so this project was really important to me. And when we were organizing for this, it was pretty iffy as whether or not we were going to get to film anything. And in the end, everyone else at KU who was going to submit a film to the project ended up dropping out. And my teacher was saying, "Oh, we're running out of time. We don't have time to do this." And I put my foot down and said, "No, we're going to do this because it's a very important thing to me." And so I ended up filming it, and then I entered the competition and we organized a meeting to go and watch the winning films and then discuss them a little bit, and then I did get an award for it, so that was pretty cool.
This film of yours touches a very real subject. In fact, I've known several people that have committed suicide over the years, including someone that I knew in high school when I was going through school. Um, Despite all the efforts to try to change the conversation and programs to try to get people to talk, there's still it carries a certain stigma to it still of people not really wanting to express their feelings. So, what motivated you to want to make a film, competition aside, that really puts at the forefront the topic of teen suicide?
So I personally have struggled with depression and suicidal thoughts, and this came to me, and I just knew that I wanted to make a film about it. Um, I personally knew what it was like to be afraid to reach out, and I am so glad that I did. And I want others to feel that way too. I want others to reach out for help and get that help that they need and look back on it and think, yeah, it was really good that I got help because you're right. There is that heavy stigma that reaching out about mental health is not okay or it's embarrassing and it's really hard. It's really hard to ask for help a lot of the time. Um, and if there's anything that I can do to communicate to anyone that it's okay to ask for help, I will do everything in my power to do that. And so I guess that was kind of one of my goals with this film. Even if it didn't have a super broad reach, it was a way for me to express my experiences and kind of maybe show someone else um, the benefits of asking for help.
You have a lot of fellow students that appear in this film as well, and I know it was all kind of coordinated through your class. So it wasn't officially a class project, though. So how did you go about getting people involved in this project? Was it kind of teacher mandated, or did you go through auditions, or what?
Well, I actually walked into a classroom. I said, "Who wants to help me with a film? It's really easy. All you have to do is sit in a room and basically just do whatever I tell you." And um, I got a few people volunteering, and then yeah, I did have Dan's help a little bit. He's like, "All right, you go help her. You go help her." Dan didn't know what I was doing. I told him I was going to film it, and he was like, "Okay, I trust you. I'm going to let you film it." And so I just grabbed them. I went into a classroom and I started filming. I didn't really want to go through the audition process or choosing um, different specific people, just purely because the I wanted a very broad spectrum of people in it. I didn't want like just my friends or just people from my class or anything like that. So I just kind of went in and chose people randomly because I wanted that diversity.
Okay, great. We've had quite a few submissions from KU students over the years, thanks to Dan's program. This year, your film was the only one that made the final cut among our judges for our K through 12 category. Have you been able to show this film in other public settings? I know that KBBH, Klamath Basin Behavioral Health, was the organization behind the film competition, and then they showcased films. But have you taken it to other film festivals? Have you shown it to friends, family, other students? And what kind of reactions have you received?
So I the only public platform it's gone through is the KBBH website and their social media, and it's been shown to. It was sent out to all the teachers, I believe, by Dan Stearns. So I know that a lot of my teachers have seen it, and it was really exciting once the competition was over and people could finally talk about it and it could finally be released. I wasn't really sure what kind of reactions I was going to be getting, or if people would like it, or if it was cheesy, or if it would come off on the wrong in the wrong way. Because I know that's really easy to do. It's really easy to have it come off as silly or not serious. And I had a really amazing responses to it. My teachers started walking up to me and saying, "Hey, I saw your video and it was really good." Or a peer would watch it and they're like, "Oh my gosh, that really got me." And I know that every time my mom sees it, she cries, which is she likes all of my videos because she's my mom. But
Right.
just to have the people that I love, they absolutely it really touched them, and I didn't know that it would have that effect. So that was really
Mhm.
exciting for me because when I have a video that just really connects with people, it absolutely makes my day. So that was really incredible.
Everyone always say it's such a cliche to say, "Oh, it's so hard to be a kid these days growing up with all of the pressures and everything that's going on," and it is such a weird time. And then 2020 hit and broke all those barriers, and now I'm sure it's got to be such a weird year to be a student. My girlfriend is a teacher, so I see it on the other side of things of how the teachers are even trying to cope and deal with putting together a school year. Um, it looks like going into the fall, the weirdness is just going to continue. So, being isolated from peers now, do you think that racing thoughts among students is just as relevant? Because your film focuses, what I came across was the idea, the very real concept that you can be in a crowd surrounded by people and still feel completely isolated for a whole number of reasons and feel completely utterly alone, even though you're around people. Now you are literally isolated because of the way that the school structures are. So, do you think that maybe COVID has made the issue of depression and suicide among teens even worse now because everyone is so disconnected? You don't have that direct contact peer group that you might normally have? I know that there's still some things going on, but everyone's kind of limited and separated. School is not going to be like like what you've experienced. So
Yeah, for sure. I definitely see how it may not connect as it might not line up exactly with how society is operating right now, but it's definitely still applies to mental health and the struggles that people go through because even if you're actually alone and feeling like you're alone, it's it's still that feeling of just not knowing what to do, not knowing how to ask for help, and I feel like um connecting it to times when we were around people, even looking at it today, it still definitely has a lot of reach, I feel, because you're absolutely right on the purpose of the video. Um, so I get that it is a little bit non-connective to our times, but I also feel like it is pretty relevant just because of those. It's still the same feelings.
mhm.
Yeah.
Have you still been able to interact with fellow students in some way? I'm sure everything's different with classes going online and everyone's just kind of stuck at home. But I'm curious, just your thoughts, because this is a topic that you care about so much. How you feel that that shift in culture of everyone is now in their own little, very teeny tiny group, and as long as they're following the rules, they're not really interacting the way that we once did, and how that might have an impact on mental health going forward, depending on how long this pandemic lasts.
I know in a lot of people's cases it has had a negative impact on their mental health, and so it is really hard because you can't, especially if you're an extroverted person, it's really hard if you can't interact with your friends and you need that stimulation of being in a classroom to work or being around other people to focus. It is very different, and that um, when you don't have something to keep you occupied or you don't have something to keep you motivated, it's very hard on mental health, and it's very confusing times. So I could see how someone's mental health could be damaged and kind of more difficult, especially with these regulations that we have to go forward with.
Yeah. Yeah. Your film has a very direct message, stating that you're not alone, and it includes calls to action, which is great if people do need help. But what do you hope is the big takeaway that people get from your film?
I want others to see that it's not something that is uncommon. Um, when I was having mental health issues and before I asked for help and before I got the help that I needed, it was very, I felt like I was a teenage cliche. I felt like, oh no, everyone's going to think this is a phase. Everyone's going to put me down for making this up or being dramatic or looking for attention, all those kinds of things. And because that's the stigma that has been built around mental health, is that
Mhm.
it's all for attention or it's just a phase that every teenager goes through. And I want to show my peers that it's more common than you think. And sometimes that does help to know that you're not the only one who has gone through it. Um, but it can also go the other way. So it's a very um, fine line on that message. But my biggest hope for it is that it'll show people um, kind of the perspective of a teenager going through mental health issues.
With the way that the school year kind of got shut down towards the tail end, and we're looking like that may be the case going into the fall as well, has that inhibited your ability to work on other film projects, or do you have other things that you're trying to still work on and develop?
Right, yeah, absolutely not. I have just been going full steam with different projects, which is really awesome because it gives me something to do. When we first shut down, there was a lot of things I couldn't do. But we do a lot of voiceover work. We do a lot of people filming themselves and sending it in. I'm working on a community project right now and talking about getting an internship in film. So it's definitely hasn't slowed down for me, which is really great. There's less things to film because there's no events going on, but
Right.
we've definitely learned how to adapt around that, which is super cool. And it's giving me just more experience, more learning, and I absolutely love it. So,
Fantastic. Well, do you have any final thoughts about your film that you would like people to know?
not that I can think of. I think you ask pretty good questions.
Well, thank you. Your film does tackle a very serious topic, but I do need to ask if in the course of production, I know it was a very rushed production, but if there were any bloopers or funny outtakes or memorable moments where things went chaotic that still stand out to this day?
Well, I think the best thing was no one except for me knew what was going on, and I was the main character. So I was directing and acting at the same time, and I didn't have time to sit down with everyone and explain what I was doing. I told them to sit in a chair, and then we went through the room and I pointed at people and they turned around and looked at the camera. I mean, they it was so funny because people are like, "What are we doing?" And I'd be like, "Oh, don't worry about it. Just do what I say." And then I come out with this video and they're like, "I had no idea that this is the what you were doing." And I told them like before they were in the video, "Hey, this is about suicide prevention." And they were so confused and I had one person and he could not stop laughing and I was like, "You can't laugh, you can't laugh." And he's like, "I know I can't laugh, but I it's just so funny because the whole room is silent and then you just have one person like doing an action and the room is there's nothing going on and they would just laugh mid thing and it took us like 4 takes to get through him because he just couldn't keep it together and so that it was really fun to film and the person working the camera, she's super sweet and bared with me through it all. So, but it was definitely a very interesting experience, and I didn't know that it would go so far, um, competition wise. But I'm very pleased with how it turned out.
Yeah. It there's one thing that I've found that in the course of production, when you're on set trying to be serious and one person gets the giggles, that is the single most contagious thing in the world. COVID has nothing on a case of the giggles when you're trying to film something and be serious. So I get that.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
thank you, Shelby, for this very important film. And in addition to being available online all weekend long through Eventive, people can catch Racing Thoughts in person at the Ross Raglan Theater here in Klamath Falls, Oregon on Sunday, September 20th during our K through 12 student block, which starts at 11 a.m. for the 8th annual Klamath Independent Film Festival. Shelby, thank you for the time and thank you for making this film.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.